can bet on us, 'cause we're good to go. I'm a patriot. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot, American through and through. And I'll fight for this land I love, from the sea, the ground, up from high above. I'm a patriot. It's tough at home, but they know the drill. We've been doing it for years. Goodbyes at the terminal gate, little faces washed with tears. Well, it's plain to see it's my family they pay a price to, and it shows. It's the fear in their eyes, it's my baby's cries, praying that I come back home.
All right, we are here on Patriots Corner Podcast. We are about to introduce former Navy SEAL Chris McKinley. Chris, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Matt, I'm here, man. It's good to be on with you. I'm looking forward to this podcast. How's everything going in the Rock, man?
It's beautiful.
It's great. I mean, I'm in Philly right now. We're gonna be up in Manhattan in a few hours, and same weather here. It's been gorgeous. Thank the Lord.
What are you doing in Philly?
My wife and I had this morning. My wife started a nonprofit foundation called Suiting Warriors, and we're a 5-star concierge suiting service. So we put free business attire on honorably, medically, generally discharged veterans or soon to be and their spouses. So we go to these events and we make them look sharp so they can pop tall in interviews and look great and sound great and get a job. That's what we do.
That's amazing. Now, so you're now, is there an event going on in Philly, I'm assuming?
Well, the event was, we're in North Philly now. We were in New Jersey at Fort McGuire Dix Lakehurst. It's a joint base. So there's actually all 4 branches of the military are housed there and have offices there. So a huge transport base, C-17, C-130s. There's jets there, the whole gamut. So we met. There's an organization that we partner with called Bridge the Gap, and they provide these classes. So they tutor the soon-to-be transitioning veterans with interview skills and how to go to these job fairs and get the most out of it, and how to follow up with employers. And we come in with the attire part, so we help them to round it all off and look sharp. So they really are armed with these tools for success. So when they leave the military, there's very little lag time. They can find gainful, meaningful employment and just embrace that whole team aspect that they've been living under for years, many of them for 20 years. So we set them on the path to success.
Well, that's fantastic. That's amazing to hear, and God bless. That's just the best. That's amazing. You know, I'm sure they love it, and especially, you know, from an individual like yourself and then your wife. You know, it's amazing how something like that all gets put together. That's great.
Oh, it's crazy. She started doing it 5 years ago because her cousin passed away 6 months after he was discharged from the Marine Corps. He did a Iraq deployment and came home and fell into the bottle and self-medication and took a nap one day and not planning to not wake up, but he didn't wake up. And she went to his funeral, and it was the 6th funeral that organization that he had just left, that particular Marine division had in the last 6 months. It was the 6th funeral. And none of the guys had dress clothes, and they didn't have dress blues, so she set out to remedy that and just do like one suit drive and get those suits to some veterans. And here it is 5 years later, and she's still doing the same thing. So that's how we met. And my first suit up event was at Fort Dix, where I was today. And that was 2.5 years ago, and I was hooked. And I've been doing it ever since. So, yeah, God bless her. God bless the mission. SuitingWarriors.org. And for people who are interested, check it out. We're always looking for cash, clothing, and volunteers.
That's great.
Time, treasure, and talent.
There you go. That's all you need. Yeah. Now, Chris, we have a ton to talk about. I know you have limited time. You're traveling. First off, there's a lot going on right now in the country and in the world. There is so much. It's, every which way but loose. It's all over the place. We got Mosul, the taking back. We got Kim Jong Un's half brother who was just assassinated, and then our commander in chief, who is upping the military. I follow you on your social media pages. What's your take on everything going on? If you want to jump in on something right now.
Well, what I see Trump doing is very it's very positive. He's reaching across every kind of aisle there that we've created in D.C. He's shattering barriers. He's certainly broken the mold, and he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do on the campaign trail. With no holds barred. The unfortunate thing is that he's getting fought tooth and people are fighting him left and right tooth and nail in order to prevent him from doing these things because they realize that he's actually a man of his word. I like what he's doing with the military. Now keep in mind, everyone needs to realize that it takes about a good solid year for an elected president to really fully implement all the strategies, basically their agenda. So what we're seeing now, some of these deportations that are, the public is up in arms about, and now there's talks of them forming another, quote unquote, underground railroad to, ferret these people all around and hide them. All this stuff was already set in motion during President Obama's tenure, because it's only been 35 days, slightly over 35 days since Trump took office. So all this stuff is still in the queue from the Obama organization. But one thing I have seen from personal experience is that when there's two Democratic candidate or Democratic president in office for too long, we have massive breakdowns in the military across the board, specifically with respect to intelligence. They try to rely on electronics and whiz-bangs and gadgets, and they get away from the boots on the ground approach, and that is the bread and butter of intelligence, is having people in those areas looking, listening, seeing, feeling, having a finger on the pulse. So if anything, I'm sure the Trump administration is going to make sure that we get boots on the ground in a more positive fashion like we're seeing in Mosul now. And believe you me, I think within the next 6 months, ISIS is not going to be with us anymore.
That's great news. Let's hope that, yeah, exactly. I'm with you on that. Now, as far as what's going on in Mosul, what's your take on now that the United States has put more of an engagement and put more footprints?
Well, I think you're going to see probably some sort of ground force commitment. Other than advisors. I mean, we've been using advisors. We use that term pretty loosely anymore, which basically just means a combat command and control. So you have someone who is calling the shots and properly guiding people and taking arms up as needed. We saw that with Charlie Keating. He was a quote unquote advisor when he was killed by small arms fire in Iraq. So we're there, and I think that presence will grow. And I think it'll grow with more special forces. We'll see Green Berets get thrown into the fray, Army SF. It won't just be your Tier 1 like Delta and Dev Group. I think you'll start to see the trickle down to the quote unquote vanilla special forces teams, which basically just means they're overt butt kickers.
Yeah. And in regards to that, what's your stance on what America's doing in Mosul right now? Because I know I was listening to, I forgot what media station it was, but they were saying that primarily, which I don't know how factual it is, which is, I'm glad why I'm speaking with you, they were saying that primarily the Iraqi forces are doing a lot, which I looked into and it was tough to find, but I do know that there are troops in that area. Am I correct?
There are. And just like we did in Vietnam when we had the Vietnamization process where we started removing American service personnel and putting the onus of responsibility back on the indigenous population. That's what we tried to do in Iraq. I think we did it too drastically, and we also announced when we were going to leave. So here we are back again, fighting for third time in the last 15 years for the same patch of dirt. It's getting to be a little ridiculous, and I think everyone realizes that right now. And so look for some definitive, hardcore resolution to the whole Mosul issue. And I think we'll see that place stabilized quick, fast, in a hurry, and we'll put Iraq back on the path of righteousness and stability, and that's what we need. It's certainly been a tumultuous place for decades now. I mean, certainly your whole lifetime, Matt, and probably mine since I was a few years older than you are now. It's never gone away. And I think there's so much fatigue. There's fatigue all over the world with the Middle East right now. So.
Well, I know that a lot of people say that they make the connection that Iraq and a lot of the Middle East in general is like the Stone Age. Very rarely is there any change.
Right. Well, there's tons of money there, and it centers around the selling of the oil, and that money doesn't really get disseminated to the population. If you're an Emirati in the United Arab Emirates, you don't really work per se. You're a business owner and you own a lot of businesses, but they import all their labor. They have Pakistanis pumping gas and so on and so forth. I mean, so that money stays at the top, and it's very unfortunate. They're very kleptocratic, and those countries like Saudi exist basically to protect the Saudi royal family, and everything they do, even to the point of rewriting the history books, is done to protect the Saudi royal family and ensure the longevity of that institution. So, and we see that throughout the Middle East, and that's why they've remained in the Stone Age. And it's socialism times, or Marxism or fascism times 1,000. So it is what it is.
Now, to get political, just as of what's going on right now, what we're seeing on media stations as far as commentators, do you ever find yourself getting at least slightly annoyed as to when somebody who has not been in a scenario or situation such as some that you have been in, do you ever find that annoying when they try to speak about something really that they have no experience speaking on? As far as the Middle East and the Muslim ban and all that?
Yeah, I think it's more than annoying. I think the word is just probably, I don't even know how to adequately describe it. I'm just disgusted, actually, would be a better term. So, if you don't have a intimate knowledge of the subject matter, you shouldn't really be on TV talking about it. So, yeah, I see that all the time. And it just gets to the point right now where instead of getting disgusted or angry, I just have to laugh because you'll go nuts.
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, you were over there and dealing with situations and have been in environments where firsthand, and other members of the military as well, of course. And then the fact that people are going to speak upon this stuff, and act as if they know what's going on, as if them reading out of an article is going to really explain what's happening, is preposterous. It is disgusting.
It is disgusting, and it's funny because I watch all news outlets, fake news and real news, because I want to see what the spin looks like. And it's when you look at 15 to 17 left-wing media outlets, and they're all saying variations of the same phraseology and using the same buzzwords, like when Trump was elected, it was all dark. It was all, that word dark, dismal, came up across all those news media outlets. So you can very much tell that they're going off of some script that was issued. And so, hey, when you talk about anything around the Trump administration, use the words dark or ominous, or you get the point. It gets to be old, and right now all the crying that you're seeing and all these safe space commandos and internet commandos, and they're really put on notice right now, and I think all it's doing too is causing the left to fall out of favor even more. I read a statistic that says that if you look at Generation Xers, they're about 2% conservative. Millennials are about 1%, but Generation Z, so these are the kids that are 12 to 18 to 19. They're saying Generation Z now is at least right off the bat about 15% conservative because they're so tired of what they've seen. And I've even heard people say, being conservative is now like the new form of like social activism. It's like the new kind of cool thing to be, is to be conservative, because they're so tired of all this, all this liberal behavior and attitudes and belief systems. So we got that going for us.
Yeah, and it is. I agree with you completely. From just my experiences, also biting your tongue and just laughing and just learning, I guess, to ignore, to kind of beat the outside of the circle, a circle that everyone really should want to be in, because that's the real environment that I believe that people should want to be connected with. Now I'm going to jump over to Syria. I do know that the Syrian president just called for more for Russian involvement. What's your stance on that?
Well, Syria and Russia, they've been courting each other for a while, and there's oil in play there, and there's control of a region, and Russia knows if they can control Syria is the gateway to Iran, and everything's in play, and the Soviets have been looking to gain a stronghold, a good foothold in that region for a long time, because of the oil. But at the end of the day, people need to realize that Vladimir Putin is not a fan of radical Islam. He's not a fan of Islamism at all. Look no further than the Bethlehem school massacres that happened not too long ago. After that, he sent Spetsnaz, all their upper echelon shock divisions into that region, and they wiped out, literally, from what I understand and what I've read, 30 to 40,000 radical Muslims in that region. They just slaughtered them, and the ones that they didn't slaughter actually escaped and became fighters in other areas like Afghanistan and Iraq, as we were seeing on the battlefield. So at the end of the day, I think Americans need to be a little bit comforted by the fact that Putin kisses the ring of Mother Russia, and Mother Russia is Orthodox Christian, is Christian orthodoxy at its core. So they're only going to be in bed so far, as long as there's a saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right?
Of course.
And if you want it in Arabic, it's aduya sadiki. Aduya sadiki, which the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So that's kind of what Russia's doing right now with Syria, and it's just Syria is this gray mass that expands and contracts, and ISIS is there, and they're not, it's such a mess right now. Put it this way, I would never want to be President Trump. I would never want to be the Secretary of State right now. It's just such a tumultuous mess right now.
Yeah, I agree, and it's sad that we're seeing that, and it depresses me, because that stuff should not be going on. I have another question that it might be a little bit of a personal question. Now, do you feel that when the U.S., when President Trump calls for more action in the Middle East and decides to, like you said, put more boots on the ground, do you think that's going to add more tension with now recruitment for ISIS? I don't know, because I've never been in the situation. I've never had the chance to speak with anyone directly from the Middle East in that environment. Do you feel that the people of that homeland are being brainwashed, or do you feel that some of them are believing with what they are saying and preaching?
I think they've been brainwashed. ISIS, for lack of a better description, has been pretty sexy They do what they want, when they want, who they want. They behead people publicly, and they film it, and they make these really, really highly produced video vignettes of all this activity. So when you get someone who's 16, 17, 18 years old, and they have no job, the future looks bleak, their relatives have maybe been killed by someone in Assad's regime, or maybe a Russian bomber, or American bomber. You can see how it's easy to convert these people to your cause. So what I believe is, if the Trump administration can put a literal, hardcore, definitive smackdown on ISIS, they will become very unsexy very quickly. If they know that these people are being hunted to the far corners of the Middle East, and it's going to lose its luster pretty quick. And Trump, being the amazing business ninja that he is going to completely cut off all funding sources to ISIS, everything. Even from the micro funding sources, it's going to be gone. They're going to dry up and just wither on the vine from a funding standpoint, and beyond that, their members are going to be getting killed at a high rate of speed.
Now, as far as funding, what do you mean by that? By funding is I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, there's a lot of different funding streams for ISIS right now. Major of which is oil. So they're capturing and seizing these oil fields in Syria and Iraq, and they're converting that oil into money, and that translates to weapons and munitions and food and all this stuff. So then you have businesses that are ISIS friendly, Muslim extremist friendly, that funnel money through dummy corporations and so on and so forth. And so all these funding streams, once they're identified, they'll be cut off, and we're starting to see that now. I think Trump knows those paper trails that go down. He knows those avenues, and always putting people in positions that do and that will and that are going to handle that. That's another thing I like about Donald Trump is one of his biggest strengths is knowing his weaknesses, and he assembles these super teams to handle what he doesn't know, and he approaches everything very systematically, and that's why he's been very successful. Well, he filed bankruptcy 6 times, 7 times, 4 times, whatever number they want to throw out. Yeah, but the guy has 287 companies. I would love to have that much of a success rate.
You and me both. You and me both. Of course.
So he's making things happen, and hopefully Congress and Senate will find their testicles and support him 100% and just push the agenda. I think that's what needs to happen.
I agree. Now, what's the ordeal from your opinion going on with North Korea? We've listened to this guy way too much. He, Kim Jong-un. Oh God, I can't. It's like a new thing every day. It's literally like a new thing every day that he's going to come out and preach about, and this and that and this and that, and the guy is still I don't know what, 5 foot tall and chubby.
He's definitely a megalomaniac. He's very, is that tradition, that typical Napoleonic complex. He was not supposed to be the natural successor to where he is. His brother, or deceased half-brother now, Kim Jong-nam, was the rightful heir. And what Nam did was he was too outspoken against the regular, normal practices that the North Korean dictatorship was inflicting upon the people. He was a little bit outspoken against that, and they basically pushed him out of that potential power position and put Kim Jong-un in there because of that reason. So it doesn't surprise me that he was taken out of the gene pool recently with that nerve agent that was applied, topically applied to him. It killed him. That's what it was. It was a nerve agent. So because I think Nam's opinion was if it wasn't let's merge North and South Korea, it was let's have a stronger relationship with China, and he wanted to do all these radical things that directly go against North Korean, dictatorial policy. So I think that's why he was removed from the gene pool.
Yeah, I agree. And do you feel that possible involvement with North Korea is on the near? You know, we see and hear all these threats that he is making, Kim Jong, and do you feel that at one point there's possibility that he's going to snap, or do you think it's all talk?
I think there's a large amount of it is posturing. He gets a headline. He gets attention. He's like I say, he's a megalomaniac. I think we've always had a presence there. People don't realize that the Korean War is still very much a war. We're in a ceasefire. We're in a stalemate right now. That's what the whole DMZ is, the whole demilitarized zone. It's this armistice. We still have, I think, 40,000 troops, give or take, in South Korea right there along the DMZ. So we've never pulled out of there. So I can see if there's any more posturing from that we're gonna at least try to sanction them into non-existence at first, or God forbid we have to go to guns with them. But I think we will definitely come out on the upper hand with that. So
do you think
China's worried because they'll have a massive influx of refugees heading west into China, and they don't want that. So they want stability in North Korea, and I think that's key to that stability is going to be a permanent alliance and blending and merging with South Korea like it should be.
Do you think we possibly see any involvement from China?
Probably, and I think we'll work with China to do that. I think because our goal is pretty much the same when it comes to Korea. We want a unified Korea, and we want a less tumultuous Korea and less potential for any kind of a nuclear incident. Right? China doesn't want that.
No, of course. Yeah, I mean,
really.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where it comes off as like you said, the Napoleon complex. That's what it always seems like, because it's like I'm saying, it comes out. It's like a new thing every single day that this guy is an issue with everything, and it's crazy. And now the tensions are rising, and you're right. A crazy amount of refugees that would be going to China, which is something that they would not want to deal with. Now, as far as what's going on with just recently happened, it was big deal, broke headlines. The Russian boat, the ship being, what was it? How many? I think it was
77 nautical miles away from the coastline, which is international waters. I think 12 miles is the limit to coastal waters internationally, I believe.
I'll tell you right now, Chris, the first thing that came to mind when I read that headline, please tell me you've seen the movie Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming.
Yes.
That's what came to mind. I screenshot it. I sent it to my dad. He was laughing about it. That was the first thing that came to mind, and it was just what's your take on that? Now I feel like people act as if that's something that's abnormal, but in reality, there's stuff that civilians don't even know that's going on, and will never know that's going on. So I feel like that stuff, that kind of activity, is not really abnormal. Am I wrong?
It's not. It's not. The amount of press that it has received because of Trump being president is abnormal. That's very, very commonplace. It's happened before. It'll happen again. And, the intelligence game is alive and as well as it has ever been, if not more. So that's just pretty much a normal occurrence. The fact that, they blew it out of proportion like that is what is actually the concerning thing. The media is doing everything they can to unhinge the Trump administration. Just plain and simple. They don't want that. They don't want any cog in that machine to be able to spin freely and lubricate and interact with another cog. They don't. So that's what they're going out of a playbook right now, and they've issued marching orders, and a lot of that funding comes from Soros and Soros shell corporations and backed organizations, and they're putting it into effect. But like I said, what they don't realize is every time the louder they get, the worse they look. So
yeah. Now, if you were President Trump and you were Commander-in-Chief, and say they do enter the states, the past the line, what would be your first thought if you could answer? what would you do in that scenario? So they do exit out of international waters and they do come in to the States. What would you do?
Well, our coastal monitoring systems are very robust, and we have patrolling aircraft all the time. I think there would be a system, an algorithm of engagement that would come down the line. First, they would make contact with them when they were, 50 miles away, and then it would be, 40 miles away, and then 30, and by that time, they would have intercept vessels that would probably meet them in international waters at the 20-mile mark, and just say, just loiter around them because we could be there too. Then it's like this, we're having a boat party. What's up?
Yeah, having a boat party.
You're making comms with each other. You're saying, what's your intent? And, do you realize you're 8 miles away from U.S. national waters, at which time we can take decisive military action. And if that's something that they want to do, then we have every right to blow them out of the water. And that is what it is. And everyone knows that. The captain of that Russian vessel knows that. The guys who are giving him the orders know that. So there's always this cat and mouse game. It's always existed. And I agree with Trump's stances. Let's have Russia be more buddy-buddy than we are, like, adversarial to them. I totally agree with that. And I'm so impressed, speaking of buddy-buddy, with our new stance, the right stance with respect to Israel. I mean, a lot of people don't realize they are the gateway to the West. If Israel falls, Western Europe is next, and the United States is next, and not necessarily in that order.
I agree, and I feel like Israel's definitely been neglected. I feel like they've 100% been not neglected, of course, because they have. But you know what I mean. From somewhat,
Yeah.
I mean, there's been shown no support. They say I know that they put a statistic out that the Israeli fighters, they are the way they are, great at what they're doing, is because they're so used to doing it. They're doing it every day.
Right. Yeah, they're very efficient. They're out there. They are holding the line, and they see it. They live it every day. So we've turned our backs on Israel in the last 8 years. And there's probably a lot of things that we don't know to the extent of how much we've turned our backs on them. We only hear what the press, the left-wing media likes to put out there. So, it could be a lot worse than we even know. So I think Netanyahu breathed an amazing sigh of relief when Trump was elected.
Of course, and as far as our security with people trying to come into our waters, it is so great. What's your stance on now this whole thing with the wall? I'm in support of building the wall. I want to protect. I love the fact that President Trump is making sure that he is not backing down from his production of this wall being built.
Yeah.
That he promised. Now, what is your opinion on that? Do you think that that's going to strike tensions with Mexico?
Well, it shouldn't. And if they are, it's just the equivalent of a gorilla beating his chest. Normally, that's just kind of like, what are you going to do about it? I don't think it's going to result in anything. They receive way more from us year after year than we receive from them. And I believe that we should build an electronic wall, a physical wall, and everything in between, and put people on the border there. In my opinion, National Guard elements from those border states should also be allowed congressionally to patrol that border. That's what they're essentially what they're for. There's that whole Posse Comitatus Act from 1970s, 1976 maybe, 79, which states that we cannot use our own military against our population. So that's why people were up in arms the other day when Trump likened the deportation increase to a military operation. I mean, obviously, we all know that he meant to say it's like a military operation in scope and organization. That's how I interpret it. But, of course, the left jumped all over it. But bottom line is, I'm all for a wall. I have quite a lot of friends in Mexico who are Mexican, and they agree with it too. They say it will force us to become more legitimate as a nation. And if that doesn't that doesn't make people stop and think, and I don't know what does. The walls work. Let's have a wall with doors, and you can come through the door if you have the right papers, or if you're willing to become a U.S. citizen. That's great.
Of course, and that's the fact that what happened to that? When did people start thinking that it's acceptable and okay for anyone to enter the country, which is not at all a racial thing? Because I'm sure you've been to countries where you are completely, whether you're in uniform or they know that you are with the Navy SEALs or not, where you've been neglected or outcast. Not to put words in your mouth, but I'm just assuming.
I've been shot at, man.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. It's ridiculous.
I've been in places where everyone wants to kill me. Everyone. They don't care what I'm doing there. They don't even want to know. I'm not from there. I'm obviously, I'm speaking English or whatever language I'm speaking. It's not Urdu. It's not Arabic. So they don't like me already. So I get it. So and what people don't realize is, yes, we are a nation of immigrants, but we've been a nation of legal immigrants. Legal is the key word there. And I'm sorry, if you're not illegal, if you're an illegal alien in this country, you should not get the advantages of our U.S. Constitution. You should be treated humanely, of course. Let's be humane about it, but you shouldn't be protected under our constitutions and our laws because they don't apply to you. You're not a citizen. You're not a citizen, and you're here illegally. So, it's crazy times we live in.
Of course, and that's the thing, is that these media stations are coming out and speaking at, you're seeing it all over the place. You're seeing it on the TV. You're seeing it in write-ups. You're seeing it even on YouTube. I forget the guy's name, but there's a guy on YouTube who drives me insane. He is so, oh my gosh, everything he says is just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's just spewing off crap. It makes no sense, and it has no bearing, and it just goes back to that fact that, it being annoying to listen. Me, I'm not even in the military. I've never served in the military. I've always been a military supporter, always. But the fact that people are trying to speak on on topics that they have no experience in is ridiculous. Just keep your mouth shut. It makes no sense to me.
Well, I agree. What's YouTube's motto? Broadcast yourself? It's more like embarrass yourself most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. It is, and it's yeah. I agree. It's nuts. It makes no sense. I remember when we were talking last time we did talk. We were discussing what it was going to be like if President Trump does get elected, and I was beyond happy when it came time and when the inauguration was in place. Now I do have one last question for you. As far as military involvement, do you feel that we're going to see a lot of people who are going to join the armed forces when President Trump is calling for this action, or do you feel is it going to be the same? Because I knew it does take a special person to join the military. God bless America's heroes who are fighting every single day, whether they're in the environment or not. Your song says it already. It's a need to know. We're good to go. That is the coolest lyric. By the way, everybody, singer-songwriter, Chris McKinley as well, American Patriot. One of the best songs I've ever heard in my entire life. I love it.
Thank you. I Matt, to answer your question as best as I can, I'll say this. We're a volunteer military, except for during the Vietnam era when we had the draft. The draft is always in place. You have a draft card. You registered. So did I. But I volunteered. I think we're going to see. We've never had really a shortage of people, except for during the Vietnam War. It was long. It was protracted. It was convoluted. People were upset. We haven't really seen that per se now, despite the fact that we've been at war for about 15 years. We haven't really seen that because I think Americans realize that the ends justify the means, and we have to protect our country, and we have to do this with a forward presence and in keeping problems from coming here, which kind of brings us full circle back to the whole immigration thing. So extreme vetting, blah, blah, blah. I think we're going to see a continued pride in the military from within our country. and people willing to pop tall and take that oath to serve and protect and defend our country from enemies, foreign and domestic, I think we're going to see that. And thank the Lord for it. And I'm a firm believer that we should have a mandatory 2 years of military service or volunteer service.
I was just about to ask.
Country. It should, and it doesn't have to be in the military. Maybe it's a Peace Corps, maybe it's the Salvation Army. But I think that everyone, especially the males, as guys today anymore, we don't really know what we want to do until we're in our mid to late 20s most of the time, and some of us even later. So 2 years is not going to cause us any grief or pain, and it'll be a great thing. That's my opinion. We should institute a 2-year mandatory. So.
And I agree with you 100%. I agree with your opinion. I think it's it's factual. It will work. It's something that would be amazing. Now, off the topic, how did you get into singing and songwriting, Chris? You do have an amazing voice. I love listening to the songs you produced.
Yeah, thank you, man. I kind of have always been interested in music and writing it. I've always been like a poet, I guess you could say, creative writer my whole life, from grade school as far back as I can remember. So in Catholic school, you have to go to music classes, and we sing in church, obviously, and I've always had an appreciation for how music can move you, and it tells a story, and it elicits a response and emotion, and I've always used music to either get me into a mood or abort me from a mood that I wanted to or didn't want to be in. So I realized that it was very powerful, and I've always sang. I've never had a problem doing it. My coming out of the musical closet moment, if you will, is back when I went through SEAL training. It was getting close to Christmas time, and we were all waiting and stretching and getting ready to do the obstacle course. And the instructors came up in their truck. We hoo-yahed them, and they got out, and they're like, hey, Christmas coming up. We need a Christmas carol. Someone sing us a Christmas carol. They're like, I'm not singing a Christmas carol. So I stood up and I sang the Christmas song, and I did it in the style of Nat King Cole. And nobody said anything like oh my gosh, they're all in shock. And afterwards, some of my buddies came up to me. They're like, dude, you're going into the wrong line of work. They're like, we don't know why you're trying to be a commando, man. You need to be a crooner. So I guess now I'm like the recovering commando, current crooner, business attire giver, you name it. So I'm having fun, and I'm paying it forward, and I'm trying to inspire patriots for generations to come. And I'm glad you like the song. And I've got some other stuff coming out soon, probably this late spring. So
great, that's fantastic. Hey, well, it's like you were the Swayze of Buds. Patrick Swayze. He was a dancer, but he could still put a beat down. You could sing a mean song, but you could still put a beat down. No worries.
There's a lot of SEALs that can tear it up on the dance floor. I've seen it. I'm like, wow. I'm always impressed when team guys go out to the bars and the music starts pumping and you get a couple of drinks, and you guys are dance floor athletes, man.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome.
Well, listen, Matt, thank you for the time, brother. I mean, thank you for pushing the song American Patriot. It's available on iTunes. My Amazon #1 bestseller is called Undaunted. Life's Toughest Battles Aren't Always Fought in a War Zone.
Fantastic book, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I was happy to get a signed copy to you and your dad. You guys are super patriots, and I was more than happy to do that. And everyone check out SUNYWarriors.org if you have some time. Like I said, we're always looking for time, treasure, and talent. So help us out when you can. And brother, I'd love to be on at some point in time in the near future. You just let me know. You're the man, and I appreciate what you're doing, and keep doing it.
Chris, thank you so much, and thank you for giving your opinion. I am so glad we finally got to hear what an American hero, Navy SEAL, and American Patriot had to say about what's going on in the world and country today. Chris, God bless.
God bless you too, brother, and circle back, man. This is going to be a good journey with Trump in the White House and everything he's doing. And I think when Trump steps down, it'll be Pence. That'll be another blessing for the country. And who knows? It could be one of his sons, maybe even Ivanka. I would love to see that. first woman president.
There we
Ivanka Trump.
There we go. Just like AC/DC says, hell's bells. The new sheriff's in town.
Boom. All right, brother. Have a great weekend, and everyone listening, have a great weekend too. And peace out, and God bless America.
You too, my friend. God bless you. Thanks.
All right, brother. Bye-bye.
Bye. That was just former Navy SEAL Chris McKinley. So, on Patriots Corner Podcast.